Well, what's ironic is that people still think that, like, oh, you can be a feminine man or a masculine woman, but at the same time, people, transition just like
That's right.
in order to, so it's like, if the gender roles don't really matter, like, why do you, want to transition, right?
That's
So
right.
this just speaks to some of the sort of contradictory aspects of the ideology.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. This is a special one I wanted to do on Noah, this detransitioner young person that I saw on TikTok, and I created a really great long 1 hour interview that I put on my podcast channel, and I'll put the link. If you don't know, I actually have a podcast channel as well. I'm not sure if y'all know, but I do interviews and put on that. And on this channel, I keep it more to the sort of reaction commentary space. But I felt like this was such a great interview that I wanted to add a chunk of it here so that you could check it out and then watch the rest of it on the podcast channel. I feel it's a very important interview. This kid is so incredibly intelligent and his story is so great, and I think it's going to help so many people. And I always value, I get so many great interviews, but I value these young people who are trusting. It's a big deal to come and do these interviews with me, not only for myself because I feel so honored that they trust me with their story, but secondly, to talk about it to the world, because you get a lot of hate as a detransitioner from the so-called trans community. But with that, I do thank you guys so much for helping support both of my channels. And I do really appreciate you wanting to hear these stories and help to spread the word that this stuff is happening to these young people. And hopefully, eventually, this will all stop and we can, on some level, get these kids the mental health care that they need. So with that, let's move on to this part of the interview.
Oh yeah, hi there. I'm Noah. I'm 23. Yeah, I'm a detransitioner. I transitioned male to female at 18. I was on hormones for about 4.5 years. And like I detransitioned about 7 months ago.
Oh wow.
I go to college. uh,
Wow.
I like strategy games. I don't know. Just
Okay. So wait, how long were you on hormones for?
4.5 years. Yeah.
4.5 years. Wow, that is so well. So first off, thanks so much, Noah. I super appreciate you trusting me with the story, and it just breaks my heart. I don't know. We're gonna get into your story, but I just hate this whole trans space. I'm a 63-year-old female who transitioned 33 years ago. So, it's really heartbreaking for me to see young people get into this situation. And so, again, I just really appreciate you trusting that I'm here to sort of bring your story to the forefront so that other young people don't necessarily go down this route. So with that, why don't you just tell me a little bit about why you chose to transition? We could start there.
Yeah, I think there was just like what I'll describe as like this, soup of psychological factors, psychological and social factors that like predisposed me to like develop a trans identity, right? I had a pretty like normal like happy childhood, honestly. No complaints really. Went to like I was in like a small community, went to this small private school. I guess I was nerdy. I wasn't very good at sports. I don't know. I never felt like super included amongst the boys. It's like the male social hierarchies are sort of when you're a child. It's basically based around like sports and everything. So, I never like felt that connected to masculinity just because of those early experiences. And I think that's just like a predisposing factor that you have to have in order to develop a trans identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I guess it's hard to overstate how much like not being good at sports like affected me because like like I played baseball when I was in elementary school, and then I was pretty decent at it when the coaches were pitching, but then like when the when we moved to kid pitch, I got like nailed by it, and like I could never like do it well again. So yeah, but in general, I think I was like pretty happy. I wasn't like honestly terribly gender nonconforming. I didn't have like severe dysphoria growing up or anything. I think the really I was pretty happy until like seventh or eighth grade. I started to develop some mental health issues. Like our family dog got cancer and died, and it was like really sad, and it just like it sort of like set off this cycle where I'd go through like periods of depression, followed by periods of like just like ups and downs. Um, yeah, I guess okay. So in middle school, I had like boys as friends, but that's when like I started making friends with different types of people, and like I found myself sort of drawn to like the kids who were gonna grow up to be kind of queer, right? Like I was really into like Steven Universe, and like I feel like everyone around me sort of felt like I was like queer or in some way, but they couldn't quite figure me out. Um, yeah. So then I also think there was just this latent idea of myself as a woman that was floating around in my brain. I don't really know why.
Do you think that you were influenced by any other people around you? Well, let me ask this: were you on social media at the time?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that there were
Yeah,
all of these factors floating around, but
yeah.
that metastasized into a trans identity when I kind of got like exposed specifically to these like online Reddit communities, like RMTF. Have you heard of the Gender Dysphoria Bible?
What?
Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, look, it's this document, and it's basically supposed to be like an overview of like gender dysphoria and what it is, and it kind of it's written in such a way that I feel like anybody who has like some subconscious desire to be trans could re-narrativize their
Sure,
entire life to convince
sure.
themselves they have gender dysphoria. Like, have you heard of the button question? Like,
No.
they do this question. It's like, if you could press a button and change to the opposite sex, like, would you press the button? And if you would press the button, that's taken as like evidence that you might not be cisgender, basically, right? But
Dude.
but they, I'm serious. No, that's how these community
So is this like on Reddit and all
yeah.
of these sort of, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
like RMTF, and like the people are like say like, oh, these online communities, it's just online, but I was like a chronically online teenager, there's a
Yep.
lot of chronically online teenagers. We live in like
Yes.
a sort of atomized society.
Yes.
Um
Yes.
and so like I had this latent desire to be feminine. It started when I did like a face app swap, like the face app things. Like
Sure.
I did the face swap and I looked at it and it just made me feel really happy for some reason. I couldn't like I couldn't really explain it. But I didn't really consider transitioning until I sort of I got exposed to like some pro trans media, and like I had always been more liberal, but I didn't really know anything about it. And it was when I found out more about it, that was like the first stage. And then there was this moment where I was like, okay, wait, am I trans? Am I trans? Like, how would I know that? And I Googled it. And as soon as you Google it, you basically end up in these online communities. Um,
So the question, you Google the question, am I trans
yeah.
or something like what makes me,
Like,
and
how do
then
I
it
know if
just,
I'm trans? Yeah.
then there's all these links that take you to like Reddit or other, or can you like give me does it say like so if I Googled, am I trans, would it say you're
Well,
trans if you,
the first thing that shows up is like stuff from like the Mayo Clinic, like symptoms of gender dysphoria, right?
okay,
But well,
okay.
that's the first step though, is you look at that and then you're like, okay, well, I want to look at experiences from people from trans people to see if I connect with those, right?
Right.
And so so like if you may have doubts, like I might have doubted like, well, I wasn't super gender nonconforming as a child, but if you go into these communities you find like, oh, all these other people weren't actually that gender nonconforming as a while. Like this person lived for 30 years as a man and then transitioned. So like is it really it basically, like, have you heard of the idea of your egg cracking?
Oh my God, that's the one I have heard of, dude. I want to barf.
Yeah.
I actually want to barf.
When
What?
yeah, it's like these. There's like these Discord servers that I was in, and there's literally like people. There's like egg cracking like Discord servers where people who are questioning come in, and they talk to people, and like, but like the thing is, people they have motivated reasoning to kind of like they believe they're trans, so it reinforces
That's right.
their idea of it. And the thing is, most people, I think, when they transition, a lot of them start out in these online communities, and then once it gets to a certain point in their transition, they kind of move on. And that's what happened to me. So I wasn't in these communities for like a long time. It was just for that like first year. It was about 8 months between when I realized I was trans and when I started hormones, and then like during COVID, that that I was really immersed in these.
There you go. You just named like three. Could you explain to the people what being an egg is? Like, can you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so you know, there's this idea that you can one day come across the idea that you could be trans, right? And
Mhm.
you connect with the idea. And someone who previously did not appear to be they appear to be like maybe a normal heterosexual man, they basically realize their egg cracks and they realize I have this inner feminine essence or whatever. And that's so it's like when you see someone who's questioning their gender, you would say their egg cracking is when they have the realization that they're trans.
Wow. Just, it's so creepy, friend. I just, yucky. So there you are, 8 months, which is a long time, to be honest with you. So on some level, it is grooming. Do you not think this is sort of a grooming kind of thing happening?
I don't know if I like the term grooming
Sure.
exactly because it
Okay.
has
That's fair.
specific like material implications, but
Sure.
I
Sure.
do think I think it constitutes sort of like maybe a cognito hazard almost,
Okay.
where
Gotcha.
there's a chance you'll because like there's a chance you'll get sucked into it, and like it's not impossible to live a fulfilling life as a transgender person. It's just not ideal. Why would you transition if you don't have to? So yeah.
Would you call it more of an indoctrination as opposed to
Okay.
grooming?
Well, I think the part of the this is an important part of it. It's like it's
Yes.
the ideology behind it. It's the idea that if you identify as a woman, you are one. Like I came across this website, right, called Am I a Girl or whatever.net, and it's this website,
Okay.
and it's like, are you a girl? And you click a button, and it's like, oh, you're a girl now because you identify as one. And that I think is because once that idea that you are like a woman just by virtue of you feeling very strongly that you are, once that idea takes root, it kind of self perpetuates itself.
That's right.
Um
Yes.
and like so everything sort of just follows.
So wow, Matt. So for me, when I transitioned back millions of years ago, I had to go through a whole system, right? Which I call gatekeeping, which is so incredibly important. But I didn't do it until I was 30 years old. But I can tell you that I never. I, when someone would ask me, well, what does it mean to be a man? I couldn't answer that. Or what do you feel like a man? I couldn't really answer that. I just wanted to. There's a difference in feeling and I wanted to look like how I look, right? But I always know that I'm still female, and that was always what we understood as you might know. I sort of don't call myself transgender. I call myself transsexual
Yeah, yeah.
because I do have a disorder. I feel totally solid in that, blah, blah, blah. I never changed my sex. We always knew that as transsexuals. Then comes along your generation where now they're saying to you, if you feel like a woman, you are a woman.
Yeah, yeah. Uh
Absurd.
no, well it's like it's the thing is it's one thing to tell someone like you can look like a woman, you can occupy the social role of a woman, you can be more feminine, you can occupy this trans feminine social role. That's one thing. But
Yes.
they tell people that you can be a woman in essentially the same way that females are women, and that's just not true. So that
No.
feeling that you have inside, that heart's desire, because I feel like most trans people, they want to be the other sex. They're not that's what they really want, that's what their hearts want. And so when you tell someone that they can become a woman like that, you're saying that they can fulfill that feeling,
That's
right?
right.
But in reality, you can't. You have to be satisfied with sort of being a simulacrum of the other sex, almost. Like,
Right on. Right on. You said it. That's exactly right. Like I said, I'm not a man. I never have been a man. I look like a man. I fulfill that role so the world sees me that way. So that's why I say it's assimilate. I assimilated into the world, but I know exactly that. That's why I always get upset when young people like you are being told, well, you can be a woman. Dude, you're never going to be a woman. I don't care how many hormones. So what? Okay, so here you are, 8 months in that space. And then how did you start to do the actual physical? Did you start a physical transition, like taking
yeah.
hormones?
So
Okay.
so I made an appointment when I was still 17 at this informed consent clinic. It was during
Wow.
COVID. So the day
Wow.
after I turned 18, I had an online appointment, and
Okay.
that same day I had a prescription for estrogen, oral estrogen. Um,
Online?
yeah, online. I think you probably today would have to go in for at least one in-person appointment, but it was during COVID, so it was online.
Oh
Uh,
my God, dude.
so like that, that's how the informed consent model works. They
That's
just
right.
give it to anyone who comes in. You just like they'll ask you questions, but you know how to answer the questions if you want to get your hormones. So
Do they teach you how to answer the questions on some of these forums, like on some of these like transgender forums, like how to get through the system?
well, people talk about it, right? Because often people
Yeah.
have like more non-binary identities, right? And they'll so but they'll go to their doctor, they'll just say they're a binary like trans woman or whatever because it's easier to get care that way. But a lot of people they really more identify as non-binary,
Right.
which I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the non-binary stuff because
Yeah.
it's actually when I first like realized I was trans. Initially, I thought that I was a binary trans woman, and then I sort of like my parents did. We did a lot of talking. They really tried their best to dissuade me.
Right.
Not even it felt transphobic at the time, but I don't really think they were being. I think they just knew it wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
And oh crap, where was I? Where was I? What was I saying? I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's all right, my friend. There's a lot going on, a lot of information. Again, thank you so much for doing this. Some young person will hear this. We were talking about that estrogen and getting into that, and then I said online. Do they in these forums? Do they kind of teach you how to navigate through the system? But and then we were talking about non-binary and
Oh
how I have the same thing as you.
yeah.
I
Well,
have a mixed feeling about it.
the thing is, right, like I kind of became convinced that I wasn't trans one, maybe I'm just non-binary, and I sort of identified as non-binary for like 3 or 4 months, but that kind of provided me a space to like, oh, I've been non-binary for 3 or 4 months. Well, I just sort of felt like I needed to fully transition in order to like escape like this male gender role that I felt very constricted by.
Mm.
Um, I wish I hadn't felt the need to identify like out of that, and I wish I just experimented with my expression and just stayed like living as a man. But I
Well,
really
that's
felt like I
yeah.
wanted to be a woman, and it felt like I needed if I took estrogen that I would like be a woman. That's like what I was. That's what I believed because that's the attitude online.
That's the
Um,
attitude, right? Women, trans women are women, trans men are men, right? That is literally what they're saying to you, which is a complete and total lie. That's why I say no child. To me, you're a child at 17, but 10-year-olds taking puberty blockers. What? They're like telling these kids you're gonna be a boy, and that's just never gonna happen for a little girl. She's gonna grow up and realize I'm not really a man, or I don't have a penis. I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? So at 17, you made an online appointment. Could you have gone into this space at 17 and gotten the hormones?
No, no, you have to be 18, but once you
Okay,
get 18, you literally it's just you sign a form and you get them. That's
I
that's
see.
the model.
Okay,
There's no gatekeeping really. That is
right.
if you live in like a big city basically. I live in a big city, so
Okay, yeah. Well,
um
other people I have interviewed at 16, they went into Planned Parenthood and got their hormones at 15 and 16 with no parental consent. Exactly like,
really? Wow.
yes, it's shocking, dude.
That is
And
that is shocking.
it is actually shocking, and they just got the hormones the same day like you, and walked out at 18. You're an adult. That's what
Yeah,
we have in this country.
yeah.
18 is an adult. You can do whatever you need to do. So, but that being said, you're still young at 18. You don't know everything, and
No,
now
my
you're
brain
in
was
this
not fully
whole.
developed.
Oh my God! And also you're having some issues. We used to have a thing called gender nonconforming. It was like you could be a feminine dude or a masculine woman, and no,
Well,
we didn't have these stereotypes.
Well, what's ironic is that people still think that, like, oh, you can be a feminine man or a masculine woman, but at the same time, people, transition just like
That's right.
in order to, so it's like, if the gender roles don't really matter, like, why do you, want to transition, right?
That's
So
right.
this just speaks to some of the sort of contradictory aspects of the ideology,
The hypocrisy. There's
Um,
a lot of hypocrisy, contradiction. They're
yeah,
always changing.
that's why there's constant like infighting right now, or like where other like trans men can be lesbians and stuff like that. And the reason there is because the labels are contradictory anyways.
I
So
know. I
so
know.
people are kind of fine with contradictory labels.
Clearly they are. I mean, like I said, dude, I did it a million years ago. I did it. I was a lesbian, right? And I totally was like, I don't want to even be near that anymore. I want to be seen as a dude, as a straight dude. Well, like chicks, you know what I mean? And like, so I
Yeah,
just don't understand this idea that, now I'm going to be a lesbian. Look at me. Like, what? Like,
yeah.
these kids are so mixed up, and it's quite sad to me. So now you're taking estrogen, and oh, that was interesting about your parents. So
Mhm.
were you living at home during the summer? Or were you in college?
Yeah, no, I was living at home. It was my senior year. I started of high school. I started estrogen without their knowledge. when I was still living with them. They figured it out like about 3 months when like they saw that my chest wasn't perfectly flat anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like I mean, they were upset, but like I was an adult, and they couldn't really do anything.
No.
That's the thing is like I don't think you can talk someone like out of a trans identity really. It's like
No.
it's not like I'm honestly really glad that they eventually started using my name and pronouns after a couple of
Okay.
years, and I'm really glad that they we were able to stay in each other's lives because my mom really pushed me to wait on getting bottom surgery until I was like done with college and like felt really settled as an adult, and I think that saved me from just making a seriously big mistake, so I'm glad that they compromised to like stay in my life.
So I hope you really enjoyed that interview. The rest of it is fantastic. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description of the video here so you can watch the rest of it. His story is so like wow, just wow. Everything we kind of know about what's going on with these youngsters. He even said he was perpetually online, and he got sucked into that whole space. But when you hear the story of the how he started to detransition and why he started to detransition and what made him realize he needed to detransition. It's pretty wow. It's just wow. The wow factor is pretty much. But Noah's a great kid, and I would appreciate you can leave him some great comments of encouragement there. And he's moving on with his life, and I think he's doing really well. I keep him sort of in touch with him, and hopefully I'll be bringing more of these stories to the table. So with that, thanks for liking, subscribing to the content so that I can keep bringing you more. And remember to check out my podcast channel, Buck Angel Podcast. And again, I'll put the link in the description of this video. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thanks again.